Guys, what's going on? I hope you guys are well. I hope you guys are staying safe. I hope everything's good. So guys, Canelo Alvarez, Errol Spence Jr. Is this a fight that we're going to see in the future? Is this a fight that we potentially could see as a super fight in the future? Someone's asked me this, and I've spoke about this many times, that I think the difference in weight here is huge. I think Errol Spence has talked openly about this fight. Canelo has also talked about it, and Canelo's dismissed it recently, saying that, you know, he's a 168 pounder and obviously he's a guy fighting at a different weight class. Before that, he did say that he would be interested in it. I personally think that, guys, weight classes matter for a reason. Errol Spence is, what, 30 years of age, and he's still at 147. If he was going to move up by now, you would say he would have at least moved up to 154, 160. Look at guys like Andrade. Andrade's 33. He's casually, moved up the weights. Errol Spence is 30, but he's not moved up any weight class, which means he's still making welterweight comfortably. And I think it would be a huge jump up for him, because what you've got to understand is he's 30 years of age. It's not like he can go to 154, then move up to... These things are going to take years. And Canelo Alvarez is 31 years of age. So you're talking about, for me, at least it'll take 3-4 years for Errol Spence to move up gradually. Maybe 5-6 years. By then, Canelo will be 37. He would have a hell of a lot more fights. And why would he wait around when he's had the career he's had and he's made the money he's made? I can't see Canelo waiting around for an Errol Spence fight, because there's no need. Canelo would have achieved what he wanted to achieve. There would be no reason for him to fight Spence. Spence is obviously fighting Pacquiao, and if he beats Pacquiao, his profile will grow more. And obviously the fight with Crawford, I think, is a fight that, a fight that should be made. But in terms of this future super fight, which people go on about with Spence and Crawford, because Mayweather said it, Spence and Canelo, Mayweather said it, that I can see Errol Spence and Canelo Alvarez, the two faces of boxing, fighting it out, for supremacy. I think that the weight gap and the weight difference is too much. I'm not sure that Errol Spence can move up, because Errol Spence, to me, although he's a big dude at welterweight, he seems quite a thin, slim frame. Whereas Canelo, even though Canelo started off, Canelo was very young when he started off at welterweight. He was very, very, very young, and he was able to move up. Canelo's got quite a thick set. Their body structure, body frame is completely different. Errol Spence has a more skinny frame, a more skinny, muscular build, whereas Canelo has a more thick, stocky kind of frame. So I'm not sure whether Errol Spence can move up the weight successfully like Canelo. I think their body, although they're similar sizes and maybe have similar reach as well, maybe Canelo, I think maybe Spence might be a little taller than Canelo. But Spence reminds me of a bit like Kell Brook, even though I think Kell Brook might have been, from a muscular point of view, even bigger than Spence. Kell Brook was a very, very thick frame, very, very thick muscular frame. However, for me, Kell Brook was a welterweight. I don't think Kell Brook was big enough for 154, because when you look at some of the guys at 154, they were massive. When you look at his reign at welterweight, Kell Brook for me was a perfect welterweight. Like, he was big for the weight, and a lot of his advantages came the fact that he was big and strong. Now, when you move up, you're giving away those advantages, because now you're no longer bigger. Those guys up there are bigger than you. Kell Brook, for me, wasn't a 154 pounder. I know he went up to fight Golovkin, but I just don't think that I don't even think Kell Brook was that big at 154. I think if you look at a lot of the guys at that weight class, they're a lot bigger than Kell Brook. So Kell Brook was kind of in a difficult place, because he got into a place, because I personally believe, because of the lifestyle that he lived, where he struggled to make welterweight, but then he also was too small for light middleweight. So then he kind of got in between, trying to have catchweight fights and stuff. But I feel like he became confused, because he didn't want to struggle to make welterweight, and at 154 he felt too small, so he didn't really challenge anybody at 154. Now, Spence, for me, is, firstly, I believe Spence is a better fighter than Kell Brook. I think he's probably more all-rounded, better. He's got the better skills. But is it going to be a case where Spence is also going to struggle moving up weight? I think Spence could do it more successfully than Kell Brook. It just depends It just depends on what Spence's ambition is. Does he want to move up? I personally think he does. I do think Spence wants to move up the weights, and I do think Spence wants to pursue a fight with Canelo in the future, because you could see from, you know, the way when he was giving the interview, the fact that I think that Spence wants that fight in the future. At the minute, he's focused on becoming an undisputed welterweight champion, but I do think if he does that, and I do think Jamel is going to become undisputed, and I think Jamel is going to move up to 160. I believe there's going to lead a road for Spence to go and try clean out that division. Now, I think it's going to be a lot harder. It's not going to be easy because Spence isn't as big as Jamel Charlo. But Spence, for me, has got very good skills. So that, for me, makes it very... That fight, for me, becomes very interesting. Guys, I'm just going to blind the curtains here because this is getting in my... Yeah, so personally, I would like... I think Spence is obviously going to eventually move up to 154. I do think that his reign at or his, you know, title contention at 154 can't be that long, because I think if he wants to fight Canelo, it's going to happen in the next 3 or 4 years. I don't think, you know, you're talking about 5, 6 years, because it doesn't make sense, because Canelo right now is at 168, right? Spence is at welterweight. The gap is too big. We're talking about 147 and 168. We're talking about almost 21 pounds difference there. So if Canelo comes back down to 160, then that fight becomes more realistic. But there's no way Spence could move up to 168. I just don't think the fact that man's 30 years of age. Do you honestly think Errol Spence can move up to 168 by, you know, near the end of his career? I don't think so. I don't think he's big enough. I don't think his body frame will allow him to get into that kind of weight class. For me, Errol Spence could definitely move up to 160. I think that makes for a good fight. And I think Errol Spence, although I wouldn't favor him at 160 against Canelo, I still think that probably gives Spence a better chance at it, just because of the fact that it'd be more realistic for him weight-wise. I do think Spence may move up to middleweight by the end of his career. But again, even that I'm questioning, because he's 30 years of age. You know, by 30 years of age, your body has grown into a fully, you know, your body is fully fledged. So what's to say he can put on another 13 pounds, you know? I'm pretty sure Spence comes down from 175, and people say, oh, well, Spence walks around at 180. Yeah, but it doesn't matter. A lot of those guys are fighting at middleweight. They can't make welterweight. Spence can, which means they're bigger guys. Gennady Golovkin can't make welterweight. He cannot make welterweight, full stop. Errol Spence can, which means that Gennady Golovkin is the bigger man, because he physically can't make, it doesn't matter what he does, what training, what science, whatever, he can't make it. Canelo the same. Canelo right now cannot make welterweight. Spence can. So Canelo is naturally the bigger man. He cannot make welterweight. See, when people ask me about this, it does get frustrating, because I don't think people understand that weight classes are there for a reason. This is why people get hurt. See, when Amir Khan fought Canelo Alvarez, right? People were going on before the fight. Were going, oh, Amir Khan looks big. You know, his height, he's taller than Canelo. Look, he's looking thick. You can walk around and look however big you want. But the fact is that Amir Khan started his career at 140. Right? Amir Khan, after that, has still made welterweight. Canelo Alvarez can't make welterweight. And when you see what Canelo Alvarez has done after the Khan fight, he's gone up to 168, and he's now one belt away from being undisputed in that weight class. Canelo is huge. He's a very thick-set guy. So this is what I'm trying to say. The weight class is a matter for a reason. And Spence wouldn't have a great chance in that fight whatsoever, because Spence, even at welterweight, you can question his punching power, in the sense that he's not a concussive puncher at welterweight. So what's he going to be like at middleweight? He's not going to have, you know, Canelo has got a great chin anyway, so Spence can't hurt him, but I'm pretty certain Canelo can hurt Spence. And Canelo's too good a boxer. Canelo's just an exceptional boxer as well. We're not talking about a guy that, you know, can be outboxed. Canelo's not going to be outboxed that easy. You know, if you can't hurt him, I don't think you can beat him. If you can't push him back, I don't think you can beat Canelo. And I don't think Errol Spence will be able to push Canelo back. Canelo's too strong. He's got such a great chin. He's overall a very, very good fighter. very good boxer. This isn't a slugger. This isn't a guy that comes forward wildly. This is a guy that's very intelligent and he knows what he's doing inside that boxing ring. His boxing IQ is very high. Very high. His boxing IQ is one of the best in the game. So you're talking about a guy moving up weight classes. Firstly, Canelo's more experienced than Errol Spence. He's fought better fighters than Errol Spence. So that experience, right, is huge. Then he's a bigger guy than Errol Spence, right? He probably takes a better punch than Errol Spence. He hits harder than Errol Spence, right? And Errol Spence isn't a fast guy anyway. Errol Spence isn't known for being a fast guy. He's more of a guy that really, he's a pressure fighter, walks you down, and he can box. He can box as well. He showed that against Garcia. He showed that against Danny Garcia. But the fact of the matter is, Canelo Alvarez can box. Canelo Alvarez is a big puncher. At middleweight as well, he's a big puncher. You know, so I don't really see how Spence can win that fight. This is why I think that, for me, the highest Spence should go is 154. Now, he could move to middleweight and fight the right type of fighter. See, when you move up weight classes, right, you've got to manage your career well. And what I mean is, Spence could go up to middleweight and fight a middleweight champion and possibly beat them. Possibly beat them. But it has to be well selected, well picked. Not just jump up to middleweight and fight the best guy. Then you're putting yourself in danger, putting yourself at risk. And a big welterweight isn't a big middleweight. Paulie Malignaggi pointing this out. A big welterweight doesn't mean a big middleweight. Canelo Alvarez has moved up at 168 and he's dominating at those weight classes. Canelo's not struggling at those weight classes. He's dominating. People may say, well, the 168-pound division is you know, weak, but nevertheless, you know, I'm pretty sure not everybody would pick Spence to beat all those guys at 168. So this is what I'm trying to say, that the weight classes matter for a reason in this game. And I just think Canelo Alvarez v Errol Spence, although it's a fight that could potentially happen at 160, for me personally, I think it would be crazy. I think Spence would be too small, undersized. And like I said, I think these type of fights can really damage somebody, because the weight gulf and the size difference is too big. It's too big. And although Errol Spence is a very skilled guy, very good fighter, one of my favorite fighters in boxing today, Errol Spence, the fact of the matter is that I just think the weight difference is too big. It's too big. And I think it's not about how big they are from a height point of view. It's not about how, you know, Spence walks around at 180, 190 and probably walks around. It's irrelevant. Canelo Alvarez couldn't make welterweight. Spence can. I think that in itself tells you who the bigger man is. And also, like I said, their body frames are completely different. Canelo Alvarez has a very thick set frame. Errol Spence has a more skinny build, more skinny muscular build, right? And by putting weight on, I don't know whether that might take away from his game, you know? So Spence is a different type of build altogether. So the fact of the matter is, I just think that, I think that fight, if Canelo was a 154-pounder, then I think that would be a super fight and a huge fight. The problem is, I know a lot of people, this will be a super fight in terms of name. But in terms of it being a fight where, you know, super fights for me are because they're two big names and it's a 50-50 fight, a fight that either man can win. I don't see that in this. I think Canelo Alvarez will be a substantial favorite against Errol Spence because of the size difference. The size difference is huge. We're talking about size difference where, you know, they're 3 weight classes apart right now. They're 21 pounds apart right now where they're fighting at. They're 21 pounds apart. Errol Spence is fighting at 147 and Canelo Alvarez is fighting at 168. Now, is Canelo Alvarez a big 168? No. Is he a big 160? Who knows? But he's moved into those weight classes and he's fully fledged now. Right? The reason why Canelo Alvarez, because of his skills, he's moving up to these weight classes, even though he's not as big, his skills are so good. So you can imagine, right? Errol Spence has been fighting at 1 weight class his whole career so far. We don't even know if Errol Spence can move up to 154 and dominate there, right? And this is what I mean. I don't know with the age that both of them are at. I think they're both a similar age. I think Spence must be in his 30s. I think he must be in his 30s. So Could Spence have enough time to firstly acclimatise in the 154-pound division? Let's not forget, he's still got unfinished business at welterweight. That might take 1 or 2 years before he cleans that out, if he manages to win. Then we're talking about him going to 154. So I don't think there's enough time for him. I think if the Canelo and Spence fight is to happen, I think after welterweight, he's going to have to jump up straight to middleweight to fight Canelo Alvarez. I don't think there's enough time for him to go to 154. Maybe go and win a world title at 154, right? He could do that, have one fight for a title at 154, then maybe fight a Canelo, you know. But that fight has to happen at 160, anything higher than that. And I don't know whether Canelo can make 160 now, or Canelo's going to be interested in going back down. You know, who knows? Who knows? You know what could also happen? I think Canelo Alvarez, if he becomes an undisputed you know, a super middleweight champion, is there a chance that Golovkin may go up to 168 to fight him for all the marbles? That could definitely be a fight. And actually, that probably deserves a video, that fight, because that topic alone, because that could be something that, you know, could be very interesting. But in terms of a Spence fight, I'm not sure that's a realistic fight, guys. I know we always like to speculate and fantasize about these fantasy fights, but unfortunately, Canelo Alvarez is too big for Errol Spence. I'm not sure that's a realistic fight. Not realistic fight in the future. Canelo's just too big. He's too big. I'm not sure that fight would be that competitive, if I'm honest. But, you know, I definitely seeing it a possibility. I definitely think if Spence cleans out 147, we'll start hearing the rumblings. But what do you guys think? Do you think that's a fight that should happen? Leave your thoughts in the comment section below. Let me know what you think. And I'll get back to you as I always do, guys. Guys, remember to please like, share, subscribe to my channel. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.